Xiao Yan's cold words rang out in front of them like a thunderclap, waking everyone up in an instant. Xiao Yan had grabbed Zhuang He's wrist. Zhuang He's face turned gloomy, and when he heard what Xiao Yan said, his expression changed. He wanted to pull his wrist back, but he found that Xiao Yan's hand was as hard as steel, firmly holding his wrist. He was unable to break free from Xiao Yan's grip. Crack! Seeing that the captain and Xiao Yan had a conflict, the surrounding students on patrol were shocked. They quickly moved forward, each of them holding a long black spear. They nervously surrounded the few of them. Jin Wei and the others looked at Xiao Yan with dumbfounded expressions on their faces. After that, they subconsciously looked at the broken ropes on the ground beside them. This was a special beginner-level spirit weapon made by the execution team of the academy. It could even bind an emperor. Just now, this guy was able to break free with just his physical strength. Who exactly are you? Zhuang He's face turned ugly and his eyes were filled with coldness. He glared at Ji Yuan and Xiao Yan, then turned his eyes to Xiao Yan. His heart was in turmoil. How could a mere monarch spirit have such powerful strength? How could he not have the strength to fight back in front of him? Xiao Yan's eyes swept across the surroundings. He saw a few patrolling students rushing into the academy. They were probably going to report to those big shots. When he thought of this, Xiao Yan also smiled. He did not answer Zhuang He's question. He tilted his head slightly and said, "Father, Uncle Zhu, don't interfere." Ji Yuan and Zhu smiled and nodded when they heard this. Immediately, they turned a blind eye to Zhuang He's gloomy gaze and retreated one after another. As the two of them walked, the patrolling students surrounding the crowd all had nervous expressions as they stared at the few of them. Don't let them leave alone. Ji Yuan and Zhu Kun have bad intentions. They are trying to protect the intruders. It is difficult to redeem them. When Zhuang He saw this, he shouted out loudly. His voice resounded across the entire empty space and echoed in the air. Xiao Yan frowned when he heard this. He glanced at the former and slowly let go of the hand that was holding his wrist. Zhuang He immediately let out an angry cry when his wrist was released. The origin monarch chi on his hand surged wildly and smashed towards Xiao Yan's chest. It was filled with killing intent. Xiao Yan let out a cold snort and turned a blind eye to Zhuang He's attack. His right arm stretched out like lightning and hit Zhuang He's chest before he could do anything. The fist hit the latter's body in an ordinary manner. Zhuang He's palm suddenly paused. In the next moment, the latter had already staggered backwards with an ugly expression on his face. He was no longer as unrestrained as before. Bending down and picking up the trial scroll, Xiao Yan sighed and said somewhat helplessly, "Whether you are stupid or not, I already said it. I told you to take a look at this scroll first." Zhuang He took a few steps back before stopping with great difficulty. His expression was extremely ugly. He felt the pain in his chest and was so angry that he almost went crazy. After entering the academy for so many years, not only was he the captain of the execution team, he was also a top expert in soaring dragon rankings. Today, he was actually slapped in the face by a monarch spirit. Although he was furious, Zhuang He did not throw caution to the wind. He looked at Xiao Yan with a gloomy gaze and denied the idea of having all the patrolling students surround and attack the latter. This fellow's strength was much stronger than his own. It was impossible for these students who had just entered the inner courtyard to harm him. After hearing Xiao Yan's words, Zhuang He glanced at the scroll in the former's hand. A familiar feeling surged into his heart, but under the influence of his furious mood, he thought deeply. With a cold snort, Zhuang He retracted his gaze. His expression was cold. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Yan's figure flashed and rushed towards Zhuang He. The latter was startled. Just as he was about to dodge, Xiao Yan had already arrived in front of him. His hand was like an iron claw that ruthlessly grabbed Zhuang He's shoulder. The force was so great that Zhuang He was unable to move at all. Also, my name is Xiao Yan, not an intruder. Xiao Yan looked at Zhuang He coldly and spoke in an indifferent tone. No one knew where this guy came from, but he had a superior and arrogant attitude. He was really annoying. Go to hell. Being easily controlled by Xiao Yan, the veins on Zhuang He's forehead bulged. He suddenly punched out with his fist, bringing along a fierce whistling sound as it hit Xiao Yan's abdomen. Xiao Yan furrowed his brows, and a cold look flashed across his eyes. Then, he forcefully grabbed Zhuang He's shoulder with his palm. The heavy force caused the latter to let out a cry of pain. Xiao Yan's left leg suddenly fell and sent Zhuang He flying. He violently smashed onto the ground not far away. Captain, seeing that Zhuang He was sent flying by Xiao Yan once again, Jin Wei could no longer hold himself back. Just as he was about to dash forward, he was stopped by Zhu Kun, who was standing beside him. When Jin Wei saw this, he became furious and was about to berate Zhuang He. Zhu Kun said coldly, "You were the ones who brought Xiao Yan here just now, right? He didn't make things difficult for you. It was already considered very good. I'm afraid that Zhuang He will be even more severely injured if we go out now." When Jin Wei heard this, he couldn't help but stop in his tracks. His face was filled with disbelief. Behind him, the few people who had come with Xiao Yan revealed a trace of fear on their faces. "Don't worry, this matter will be settled in the end. It won't have anything to do with you all." Ji Yuan turned his head and smiled at Jin Wei and the others. He said something that calmed them down. "Seniors, who is he?" Jin Wei's teeth seemed to be trembling. He looked at Xiao Yan and asked in fear. He is the same as. No, he will surpass Mu Yuyang in the future." Ji Yuan looked at Xiao Yan with a smile on his face. He had great confidence in Xiao Yan. After listening to Ji Yuan's words, Jin Wei couldn't help but be shocked. Mu Yuyang was a legendary existence in the academy, and none of them dared to look up to him. Who exactly was this Xiao Yan? Bastard! Bastard! Guards, take him down! After being sent flying by Xiao Yan, Zhuang He could no longer remain calm. He struggled to get up from the ground and shouted furiously. His eyes were filled with fury, as if he was going to tear Xiao Yan apart. Hearing Zhuang He's words, the surrounding dozens of patrolling students were stunned. Then, they looked at each other in dismay. After witnessing Xiao Yan's strength, none of them dared to rashly step forward. "What? Are all of you going to rebel?" Seeing that no one was moving, Zhuang He's expression was as gloomy as water, and he almost went crazy from anger. Xiao Yan looked at Zhuang He, who was pretending to be crazy, and pursed his lips. He didn't say anything. Hearing this, some of the patrolling students had ugly expressions on their faces. They gritted their teeth and finally shouted as they rushed towards Xiao Yan. "Stop!" Suddenly, a powerful voice sounded from the sky behind them. It seemed to carry a force that could shock one's mind, causing the patrolling students who had almost rushed forward to stop unconsciously. Everyone looked back. An old man with long hair, who was wearing a gray robe, had already soared into the sky and was looking down. When he saw Zhuang He's miserable appearance and everyone's actions, he had already understood a little. Immediately, he turned his gaze to Xiao Yan. "Zhu Kun, Ji Yuan, what's going on?" The gray-robed old man landed on the arena. His eyes stared at Xiao Yan and asked the two of them. These two were considered influential figures within the inner academy. Naturally, this matter today had something to do with them. Everyone felt relieved in their hearts when they saw the gray-robed old man. The originally tense atmosphere of the scene instantly scattered. Elder Wu, Ji Yuan and Zhu Kun's facial expression remained unchanged. They bowed slightly to the old man. Under the cold gaze of the old man, Ji Yuan said in a clear voice, "Zhuang He tried to stop the Saint rank trial participant from entering the courtyard. This crime should be punished. Elder Wu, please investigate." As soon as the words left his mouth, Zhuang He's expression changed instantly. His ferocious expression immediately disappeared, and was replaced by endless astonishment. Saint rank trial participant? Elder Wu frowned when he heard this. His expression also changed slightly. His eyes flashed and he coldly snorted, "What a bunch of nonsense." In recent years, when has the Yunluo Academy ever had a Saint rank trial participant? One Xiao Yan squinted his eyes when he heard this. His palm lightly caressed the trial scroll in his hand. Just as he was about to speak, Zhu Kun had already taken a step forward and loudly said, "Elder Wu, you can be considered a third-grade elder of the academy." The students don't believe it. When Elder Feng Yun, brought us to the academy, he didn't tell you about the appearance of a Saint rank trial participant. When Elder Wu heard this, his expression could no longer remain calm. His sharp eyes stared at Xiao Yan. His lips seemed to be trembling, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Seeing Elder Wu's puzzled gaze, Xiao Yan's heart was also filled with puzzlement. After hesitating for a moment, he threw the scroll in his hand towards Elder Wu. "Xiao Yan, if Senior doesn't believe me, please take a look at this scroll." Elder Wu received the trial scroll with a solemn expression. After seeing the appearance of the scroll, his expression became even more strange. This was the Yunluo Academy's trial scroll. Could it be that this fellow was impossible? Back then, he had clearly seen the bead that Fang Yun was holding shatter. That bead represented the saint-rank trial participant. Once the bead shattered, one would no longer be in this world. Although he was extremely puzzled, Elder Wu's heart could not help but beat rapidly. The moment he took the scroll, he tore it apart. Wah! The moment the scroll was torn apart, 10 brilliant rays of light suddenly shot out from within, illuminating Elder Wu's face. It was extremely dazzling. 10. Elder Wu's expression instantly froze when he saw the light. In the next moment, incomparable joy leapt out from his heart. He is actually still alive. Due to his excitement, Elder Wu's aura suddenly soared into the sky, sending the surrounding patrolling students flying one after another. Large patches of dust rose from the empty ground. Within the dust, Zhuang He's face was unusually pale. The fury in his eyes had already dissipated, and what replaced it was endless astonishment. Back then, when he entered the academy, he had also experienced the tempering of the strength of the training scrolls. Naturally, he knew what the amount of light on it represented. In the past, he had only barely managed to reach 6 rays of light. He was already considered a genius by some of the elders in the academy. The symbol of 10 rays of light was something that even he could not imagine. When he heard Elder Wu mumbling to himself, Xiao Yan frowned. He was actually alive. What did this mean? Who? After a long time, Elder Wu finally calmed down. He took a deep breath and took a deep look at Xiao Yan. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the surrounding people, he slowly cupped his fists and said in a clear voice, "Wu Chongqing represents the elders of Yunluo Academy and welcomes the return of the saint-rank trial participant." As soon as the words left his mouth, the surrounding students were stunned. Even Ji Yuan and Zhu Kun were slightly shocked by Elder Wu's performance. Although both of them knew the attitude of the academy towards the saint-rank trial participant, they didn't expect Elder Wu to be so straightforward. Not far away, when Zhuang He heard Elder Wu's words, his face instantly turned from pale to ashen. After that, he opened his mouth and almost fell to the ground. As one of the 4 law-enforcing elders of the punishment department, even he would be shocked by Wu Chongqing's usual solemnity. Today, he actually cupped his fists and greeted the saint-rank trial participant. Xiao Yan was also slightly stunned when he heard this. After that, he hurriedly returned the salute and said, "This Xiao was fortunate enough to not fail the mission. I have completed all 3 tasks of the Holy Rank trial." Wu Chongqing took a deep look at Xiao Yan when he heard this. His eyes were filled with shock. He nodded slightly and said, "Follow me. We are going to meet the elders." As he spoke, his sharp gaze swept across the empty space. Finally, it landed on Zhuang He. When he saw the latter's appearance, he said in a deep voice, "Zhuang He, temporarily hand over your position as the captain. After this, I will talk to you." After his words sounded, Wu Chongqing cupped his hands towards Xiao Yan. After which, he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the academy. When Xiao Yan saw this, he did not hesitate. He nodded towards Zhu Kun and Ji Yuan before following closely behind. Ji Yuan and Zhu Kun looked around. The surrounding students were shocked and found it funny. The two of them nodded to each other and followed closely behind. Wu Chongqing's words were like a thunderclap that exploded in Zhuang He's ears. It instantly caused the latter's entire body to soften. He was almost unable to stand up. The shock in his eyes gradually turned into hatred. He stared intently at Xiao Yan's back as he left. His 5 fingers were tightly clenched. Sharp nails were inserted into his flesh. Fresh blood was flowing out. Xiao Yan, saint-rank trial participant. HMPH. Even if you have extraordinary talent, you are only a monarch spirit now. The roar of hatred kept echoing in Zhuang He's mind, causing his eyes to turn blood red. He would definitely get his revenge. The entrance to the Yunluo Academy was filled with flowing light. It was like a spatial whirlpool, confusing and confusing. After following Elder Wu into the vortex, Xiao Yan's vision blurred. In the next moment, a boundless field of vision was revealed. Looking up, it was as if a huge mountain had been split open. The valley below was boundless, and there were countless pavilions and pavilions, like a paradise. At this moment, the place where the two of them were standing was at the top of the valley. Looking down, one could see the bustling scene in front of them. Around the valley, there were countless mountain peaks piercing through the clouds. The surrounding clouds and mist curled up, making it seem like a paradise. At the end of his sight, his field of vision was open. Several tens of thousands of meters long waterfalls flowed backward, and steam rose. Even though they were thousands of miles away, he could still sense it. This is the Yunluo Academy. Xiao Yan looked down at the canyon below, and the pavilion stood tall. There was no end to it. Wu Chongqing waved his sleeve and said in a low voice, "Follow me." As he spoke, his body flashed and he had already rushed along the mountain peak. Xiao Yan glanced at the valley below. Although he urgently wanted to see Xuan Er and Kai Lin, he had no choice but to follow Wu Chongqing and leave. Elder Wu sent a voice transmission. "Why did you call us here?" "I'm not sure. I just received a voice transmission as well. Judging from the tone, it seems to be quite urgent." "Urgent? How many years has he been the law enforcement elder of punishment department? Why would he be anxious?" "Interesting." At the peak of the mountain, in a place surrounded by clouds and mist, several figures were flying over. Behind them was the monarch aura. As they flapped their wings, they landed on the ground. Everyone was wearing gray robes. There were 3 golden bars on his chest. When they landed on the ground, they were already whispering to each other. "I heard that Yuan Tianmu has returned with Shen Tu's head. However, it seems like he has also used up a green explosive killing talisman." As he spoke, an old man with white eyebrows and black hair arrived from the sky. When he saw the elders, he smiled and said, "Elder Xiao is here too." When they saw the newcomer, everyone was startled. The former was a second-grade elder of the Yunluo Academy, and Elder Wu had invited Elder Xiao over for an urgent matter. "Shen Tu, you must be the second master of the Kangri group, right? I heard that he failed to break through to the monarch emperor, but his strength is much stronger than an emperor's. With Yuan Tianmu's strength, defeating him won't be difficult. As for the green explosive killing talisman, although it's precious, with this battle record, I think we can exchange it for one." After hearing Elder Xiao's words, the crowd also let out sighs of admiration. As expected of an elite from the realm in Valley, he did not take on any heavy responsibilities. Elder Xiao, may I know why you called us here?" A relatively younger elder bowed slightly to Elder Xiao and asked. Elder Xiao smiled and shook his head. "I don't know either, but with his character, no big matter what, he wouldn't be so careless." An elder at the side chuckled when he heard that. Elder Xiao is right. Given that fellow's personality, he's the most annoyed with this kind of gathering. This is the first time he has taken the initiative to contact us. The speaker was Elder Fang, who had recruited Xiao Yan and the others back then. After several years, his facial expression hadn't changed at all. "Hey, he's here." Among the many elders, there was no lack of people with powerful spiritual strength. As they spoke, they could sense the fluctuations of the aura outside. 2 people? Why is there another monarch spirit? While everyone was feeling puzzled, the space in front of them rippled slightly. Elder Wu's figure appeared. The space behind him rippled once again, and a young man dressed in a black robe followed closely behind. 2 inches Elder Wu, this is. All the elders were slightly stunned when they saw Wu Chongqing bring in a young man. This young man was clearly not a student of the Yunluo Academy. Moreover, judging from his aura, it was obvious that he was advancing in a sharp and fierce manner. He was not as cautious as an ordinary student. Elder Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked at Xiao Yan and asked him slowly. The many elders beside him also looked at Wu Chongqing with puzzled gazes. Could it be that the reason they were called here was because of this young man? In the crowd, Elder Fang furrowed his brows. Looking at Xiao Yan's appearance, he had a feeling that he had seen him before. "Greetings, Elder Xiao and the elders." Wu Chongqing slightly cupped his hands towards the crowd and looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing behind him. Even though he was standing in front of a group of monarch emperor warriors, the latter didn't show any signs of fear. "Elder Fang, you were the one who kept the Saint Rank trial participants bead, right?" Wu Chongqing looked at Fang Yun and said in a clear voice. When he heard Wu Chongqing suddenly ask about what happened a few years ago, Fang Yun was slightly startled, and he subconsciously nodded his head. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. The expression on his face as he looked at Xiao Yan instantly changed. "I remember now, that Saint rank trial participant is you. Xiao Yan looked over and saw Elder Fang. After being momentarily stunned, Xiao Yan had already recognized him. Elder Fang, it has been a few years since we last met. It is truly exciting to be able to meet again today. Elder Fang's sudden shout stunned all the surrounding elders. Then, all of them turned to Xiao Yan with puzzled expressions. Elder Fang, we have all witnessed the destruction of the bead. Anyone who breaks the bead will die. This could happen on any trial participant. How could this fellow be the Saint rank trial participant from back then? An old man beside Fang Yun coldly harumphed and said in a deep voice. Back then, Fang Yun had brought Gu Yuan and the others back to the academy. When everyone heard that they had recruited a Saint rank trial participant, they were all wild with joy. However, in less than 2 years, the pearl that symbolized the Saint rank trial participant had shattered, causing everyone's heart to sink to the bottom of the valley. It was not easy for them to forget about it all these years. There was actually someone who took it out to make a big deal out of it. After hearing this elder's words, many of the elders, including Elder Xiao, frowned. They looked at Fang Yun, but the latter was still extremely excited. He repeatedly said, "It can't be wrong. It's definitely him." Elder Wu pondered for a moment. When everyone looked at Xiao Yan once again, the former slowly stretched out his hand and tore open the trial scroll in his hand. In an instant, 10 rays of light filled the entire space and shone on the faces of the elders. Each of them had an interesting expression on their faces. 10. Saint rank trial participant? Why is he still alive? Seeing the 10 rays of light shooting out from the scroll, everyone's hearts were finally shaken. Elder Fang could not hide his excitement as he stepped forward and praised Xiao Yan. Unbelievable, unbelievable. You have arrived here in less than 10 years. Unbelievable. The Saint rank trial participant has returned. The future of Yunluo Academy has finally found a glimmer of hope. Elder Xiao's eyes were extremely vicious. He could naturally tell that these 10 rays of light were definitely not imitated at a glance. Immediately, he let out a long sigh. His tone was filled with relief. After he sighed with emotion, Elder Xiao went forward and took the trial scroll from Elder Wu. After taking a glance at it, he looked at Xiao Yan and said with a smile, "In less than 9 years, you have reached the Yunluo Academy. Very good, very good. Have you completed the 3 conditions on it?" A true Saint rank trial participant not only required one's disposition and resilience, but also one's extraordinary strength. The conditions listed above were indeed extremely harsh. Even Elder Xiao sighed with emotion. However, since he had returned, he must have had an extremely difficult experience. Even if he had not completed one of the conditions, he would still try his best to keep it. When Elder Fang, who was standing beside Xiao Yan, heard this, his expression changed slightly. He also recalled the contents of the scroll. He immediately said anxiously, "Elder Xiao, Xiao Yan just arrived in the Great World when he accepted the trial. He is extremely weak, even if he is Mu Yuyang. When he accepted the trial, he also reached the level of a sovereign. You have seen those 3 trials. Even we may not be able to complete them." Elder Fang wanted to speak, but he was stopped by Elder Xiao. The latter did not speak, but continued to look at Xiao Yan with a smile on his face. When Elder Fang's words left his mouth, the many elders behind him finally recalled that Xiao Yan had only just arrived at the Great World's fighting monarch during the trial. With such strength, it was indeed difficult to complete a trial of that level. Xiao Yan suddenly smiled as he looked at Elder Xiao. He slowly raised his hand, and the storage ring on his finger flickered with a spiritual light. A few monarch crystal cards appeared in his hand. The monarch crystal cards sparkled with a golden light, as if they were floating with a layer of gold. Elder Xiao received the monarch crystal cards. His mind was slightly immersed in the process, and he immediately understood what was going on. Not bad, nearly 20 million monarch crystal. He returned the monarch crystal card to Xiao Yan. Elder Xiao looked at Xiao Yan with a strange gaze. He didn't care where these monarch crystals came from. This fellow had really exceeded his expectations. 20 million? When they heard this number, all the chiefs behind them were dumbfounded. When they thought about how Xiao Yan had only started the trial with the strength of the fighting monarch, everyone's heart almost skipped a beat. This kid was truly a monstrous genius. Second, 5 monarch emperor level middle rank heavenly beasts for the other heavenly cores. After saying that, Xiao Yan waved his hand once more. 5 brocade boxes appeared in the air, and they were wrapped by origin monarch cheese as they floated in the air. When Elder Xiao saw this, his expression finally changed slightly. There was a trace of seriousness in his eyes as he looked at Xiao Yan. If the 20 million monarch crystals might have come from some ruins, then the difficulty of obtaining the middle-rank heavenly beasts of these 5 heavenly cores would be much higher. He flicked his finger and opened all 5 boxes. That were flickering with various colors appeared in front of everyone, flickering with brilliance. 5. Spirit Qi is very abundant. Elder Xiao swept his gaze over them and fell silent in his heart. Elder Fang stood by the side. When he saw the 5 heavenly cores, he could not help but feel overwhelmed by emotions. His eyes were filled with excitement. This fellow was really unexpected. It's a pure 5 heavenly cores, especially that metal-attributed heavenly core. I feel that it seems to have the spiritual energy of a high-grade heavenly beast. Many of the elders had keen senses. They looked at the 5 heavenly cores in the air and said in a deep voice, "I remember that Mu Yuyang also collected heavenly cores back then. However, his heavenly cores were 15 low-grade Xiao Yans. Compared to the 2, this Xiao Yan doesn't seem to be inferior." An old man with a solemn expression spoke in a solemn voice. "The last item, the highest honor of the prefecture." Elder Xiao stared at Xiao Yan and spoke slowly. This was almost impossible to complete, but it was enough. With the perfect completion of the previous 2 tasks, this Xiao Yan had already reached the level of the Saint-rank trial participant. The honor of a prefecture. Xiao Yan nodded his head lightly when he heard this. He couldn't help but think of the Flame Spirit Gang of Spirit Heaven Mansion. Du Ruoxi and Bai Lufeng were there. As he was thinking, Xiao Yan opened his palm. Under Elder Xiao's astonished gaze, a purple token appeared in his hand. On the token, there were the words Spirit Heaven Mansion. The strokes were vigorous and majestic. Below the 3 words, there was a lifelike pill furnace. On top of the pill furnace, there was a golden crown that seemed to be shining with a bright light. This, elders, you should be able to recognize it. Quote, 0 inches Spirit Heaven Mansion? Elder Xiao was slightly startled when he saw the purple token in Xiao Yan's hand. He stretched out his hand and took it. He looked at the words on the token with a surprised and bewildered expression. When he saw the crown on the token, his expression couldn't help but change. With his identity, he naturally had a wide range of knowledge. If his guess was right, this token should be the champion token of the pill competition in every prefecture. I didn't expect you to be an alchemist. Elder Xiao held the purple token tightly as he stared at Xiao Yan. His entire body was trembling. This fellow was truly a rare genius. He was actually the champion of the pill competition. Xiao Yan smiled lightly when he heard this, but he didn't say anything. Elder Zhu, you are an elder of the Elixir Association. You should know this token, right? Elder Xiao sighed and handed the token to a younger elder beside him. He looked at Xiao Yan with praise. Elder Zhu hurriedly received the purple-colored command token. He looked at the words on it and mused for a moment. His hand gently rubbed it. Only then did he let out a long sigh. His face twitched. He looked at Xiao Yan in surprise and nodded. That's right. This command token is the proof of the champion of the pill competition in Spirit Heaven Mansion. After hearing these words, it was not only Elder Fang. Many of the surrounding elders had shocked expressions on their faces. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The highest honor of a prefecture would surely be fought over by countless people. A mere monarch spirit warrior actually had such an ability? Your name is Xiao Yan, right? Can you let me see your soul power? Elder Zhu's facial expression returned to normal. Excitement appeared in his eyes all of a sudden. He looked at Xiao Yan and spoke in a trembling tone. Xiao Yan nodded his head. Both of his eyes were slightly narrowed. Soul energy surged from his brows. In an instant, an incomparably vigorous soul energy surged out and filled the entire space. Mid-alien realm. Elder Zhu took a deep breath when he sensed the strength of Xiao Yan's soul energy. This feeling was as though he was approaching the peak of the intermediate stage. Although he was powerful, he didn't expect his soul energy to be so powerful as well. As Elder Zhu was sighing with emotion, his facial expression suddenly changed. His eyes were fixed on Xiao Yan, and his voice was trembling. Even the other elders could hear it clearly. Wait, you're here because of the fighting monarch of lower realm? Hearing Elder Zhu's words, everyone's facial expression changed dramatically. Even the elders who had never come into contact with the soul force understood the meaning of Elder Zhu's words. There was only one way to transform the fighting monarch of lower realms soul, the 3 steps soul transfer. The fact that Xiao Yan could become the champion of pill competition and that his soul force had reached the middle period of alien stage indicated the success of the 3 steps soul transfer. If he didn't have the help of an expert, it would be impossible for him to complete it by himself. Elder Fang looked at Xiao Yan with a dumbfounded expression. What exactly had this guy experienced? Suddenly, a thought struck his mind. Could it be that the shattering of the bead had something to do with his experience? Seeing Xiao Yan nodding his head slowly, Elder Zhu couldn't conceal the excitement in his heart. His face was filled with joy as he said, I don't know how your 3 steps soul transfer succeeded, but after passing through the 3 steps soul transfer's fighting monarch of lower realm, the strength of your soul is definitely much stronger than others. Xiao Yan, join our Elixir Association. With your ability, before you enter the realm and valley, you will definitely become a great alchemist. Hearing Elder Zhu's words, the elders weren't stupid. They instantly understood how much potential Xiao Yan had. Xiao Yan, you should join our punishment department. I can feel your aura. It's very clear and awe-inspiring. Joining the punishment department will definitely push your potential to the limit. Elder Zhu's voice had just sounded when a rough voice sounded like thunder. Xiao Yan raised his eyes and saw a bald elder with a strong physique staring at him. He grinned and said, back then, Mu Yuyang also entered the punishment department and held the position of the president. Your words are definitely not a problem. The bald elder interrupted with a smile, causing Elder Zhu's eyelids to twitch slightly. This fellow is really scheming. Mu Yuyang? Xiao Yan nodded when he heard that. He was able to be the leader of the punishment department's president. With his ability, it was not unexpected. This guy is not weaker than Mu Yuyang in the past. Elder Xiao took in the facial expressions of the elders one by one, and he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. When Mu Yuyang returned to the academy after completing the trial, he was also contested by the elders, but as one of the 3 major powers of the academy, the Pill Assembly. He did not show any interest, not for any other reason. It was because Mu Yuyang's soul power wasn't outstanding at all. Even so, he could still be considered a complete man, lacking in soul power. He had used his strength to make up for it. In an instant, the many elders were divided into 3 camps. The Pill Elder led by Elder Zhu, the elders of Punishment Department led by the Bald Elder, and some of the elders who were watching the commotion. Xiao Yan could not help but laugh bitterly as he looked at these elders who were quarreling intensely. Elder Wu, who was standing at the side, swallowed his saliva and was about to bewitch Xiao Yan into joining the Punishment Department. When Elder Fang saw Xiao Yan's expression, he had already understood what was going on. Immediately, he laughed and said, Everyone, stop fighting. I'm afraid that Xiao Yan's thoughts are not on the Pill Association and the Punishment Department. After saying that, Elder Fang looked at Xiao Yan slyly, then looked at the elders who had stopped quarreling and said with a smile, Xiao Yan came all the way to the Yunluo Academy not to see us old men quarreling. Elder Xiao, let Xiao Yan rest for a few days first. Also, Call Kai Lin and Xiao Xuan are out of the illusory spirit realm. Xiao Yan was stunned when he heard this, and then he was wild with joy. This old man looked quite pleasing to the eye. Oh! Elder Xiao looked at Xiao Yan in surprise when he heard this. After that, all the elders smiled knowingly, which made Xiao Yan's face turn red. Of course, that won't be a problem. Elder Xiao immediately burst into laughter. He was in an exceptionally good mood today. This rule was also broken. Xiao Yan, Elder Fang will arrange a place for you to stay in a while. I will discuss the reward of the Holy Rank trial with the other elders and give it to you. You have to remember that the Yunluo Academy only has 3 years left. Elder Xiao's expression returned to a solemn expression. He nodded at Xiao Yan, then stepped into the sky and left. He wanted to inform the other 2nd grade and 1st grade elders that the Saint Rank trial participant had unexpectedly returned. This kind of news would definitely make the entire Yunluo Academy boil with excitement. Xiao Yan was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Elder Fang, who was standing beside him. The latter also had a solemn expression on his face. When Xiao Yan saw this, he opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't ask anything. All right, since Elder Xiao has said so, we won't force him anymore. However, the Elixir Association really needs a talent like you. Elder Zhu went forward and returned the purple token to Xiao Yan. He let out a long sigh and left with a smile. Xiao Yan, work hard. 4 years later, you will join Mu Yuyang and the others and bring out the prestige of the Yunluo Academy. The bald elder also stepped forward and laughed. His face was filled with joy. The Saint rank trial participant, which he thought had fallen, had returned safe and sound, and had even perfectly completed the 3 trials. This kind of pleasant surprise really made his heart bloom with joy. After the elders left, Elder Wu sighed and hesitated for a moment before saying, "From Elder Fang's words, Kai Lin and Xiao Xuan-er's relationship with you is not ordinary. Although it is very difficult, I have to say it." Xiao Yan frowned when he heard this. Elder Fang shook his head when he heard this. Clearly, he was well aware of this matter. The 2 of them are known as the twin pearls of the inner academy, either in the light or in the dark. There are many people who like them. You have come. You. 2 inches, huh? Xiao Yan's brows furrowed and relaxed. He smiled and said, "I knew they would cause a commotion." Xuan-er alone could cause such a huge commotion back then. With Kai Lin, it would be strange if no one was hostile to them. Xiao Yan's voice gradually became low and the 2 of them did not hear what he said after that. Elder Fang sighed slightly. "But you don't have to worry. You are a Saint rank trial participant, and you have perfectly completed the Holy rank trial. Ji Yu Yuan, Zhu Kun, and the 2 of them will be taken care of by you. They will enjoy similar cultivation resources as ours. In the future, as long as they have enough resources, their strength will increase very quickly." Xiao Yan nodded silently. Elder Fang had said this before. When a Saint rank trial participant returned to the academy, he would be able to enjoy the treatment of a 2nd-grade elder. Xiao Yan had no idea what kind of treatment this was. However, it was obvious that it was not low. He had gone through countless hardships just to bring these to them. Elder Wu, who was standing at the side, also said in a deep voice, "That's right. We will also use the name of Punishment Department to warn all the students in the academy. In the future, no one is allowed to cross the line." Just as he was speaking, Xiao Yan smiled and shook his head. "Elder Wu, there is no need for that. Whoever has that thought, just let them come and find me, Xiao Yan. Xuan-er and Kai Lin are both my wives. Protecting them is enough with my own strength." Hearing Xiao Yan's resolute words, Elder Fang and Elder Wu looked at each other. Both of them could see a trace of a smile in each other's eyes. It seemed that this fellow was able to complete the Saint rank trial participant. It was not without reason. The strong desire to protect his family was likely also a reason that supported him on his journey. "Let's go. We'll settle you down first." Elder Fang nodded. He cupped his hands towards Elder Wu and left with Xiao Yan. Elder Wu stood still and watched the 2 of them disappear from his sight. He couldn't help but feel excited in his heart. The Yunluo Academy now had 2 Saint rank trial participants. 3 years later, the 4 academies competition would have some hope for the Yunluo Academy. After regaining his senses, Elder Wu thought of Zhuang He, who was outside the courtyard. This guy was good at everything, but he was too conceited and arrogant. He was afraid that he wouldn't let this matter rest after being humiliated by Xiao Yan. This kid seems to have some thoughts about the 2 of them. And that little guy, we have to have a good talk when we get back. Sigh, what a disaster. Elder Wu shook his head helplessly. Xiao Yan looked harmless, but he could still keenly sense the violent state of mind of the latter. Dragons had reverse scales, and those who touched them would die. To Xiao Yan, Xiao Xuan-er and the others were the true reverse scale. If they touched this bottom line, they wouldn't just embarrass Zhuang He like they did outside the courtyard. "I can't get involved in this kind of thing. Forget it. It's good that you all have a good memory. By the way, let's see Xiao Yan's true strength." Elder Wu's eyes flickered slightly. He also walked out. The space in front of him rippled and the former had already disappeared. Xiao Yan followed Elder Fang and walked on top of the mountain peak. He looked down and saw many well-arranged pavilions and pavilions. It was like a huge city built in a valley. Although it was called a city, it lacked the anxiety and disturbance that a city should have, and it also had a more comfortable life. The heavens are really playing tricks on us. Back then, when we saw the broken bead, many of the elders had bitter expressions on their faces. They were depressed for several days. "I didn't expect that you would successfully come here. It makes me overjoyed." Elder Fang couldn't help but sigh with emotion as he led Xiao Yan into the valley. The bead? Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but look at Elder Fang. This thing was enough to determine his own death? That bead is also fixed with the trial scroll in hand. It can detect where you are. When the characteristics of your life are no longer in this world, the bead will shatter. In the 4th year after meeting you, the bead will shatter. Elder Fang said as he looked at Xiao Yan. He was also extremely curious about what Xiao Yan had experienced. Xiao Yan remained silent when he heard this. He thought about it carefully. At that time, he should have entered Elder Yi's illusory realm. As an independent spatial zone created by the ultimate saint expert, it really didn't exist in this world. This might be the reason why the bead broke into pieces. Although he thought about it, Xiao Yan didn't say it out loud. Now that he said it out loud, who knew what kind of trouble it would bring him? But at that time, the elders had thought it through carefully. Adding Gu Yuan and the others' extraordinary talent, they didn't tell them about your death. Xiao Yan felt lucky when he heard that. He looked at Elder Fang gratefully. If Shu and Ur and Kai Lin found out about it, they would definitely be heartbroken. Now it seems that we really don't have the heart to do a good deed. Seeing Xiao Yan's grateful gaze, Elder Fang couldn't help but smile and sigh with emotion. Initially, I thought that it would be good enough for you to come back within 12 years. I didn't expect that you would arrive here so quickly. The competition of the 4 academies will begin in 3 years. At that time, the reputation of Yunluo Academy will be entirely dependent on you and Mu Yuyang. Looking at the bustling scene below, Elder Fang pondered for a moment and said slowly. 4 academies competition. Xiao Yan nodded upon hearing this. After which, he laughed bitterly and said, I have heard of the reputation of many experts in Realm in Valley and Capital of Chaos. Their strength is much stronger than mine. It's different. Elder Fang shook his head, pursed his lips and said, the other 3 academies. They all have similar trials to the Holy Rank trial of the Yunluo Academy. In the same year that they recruited you into the Yunluo Academy. It was said that the Star Sky Academy had also recruited a cultivator of the highest level. His name was Sang Shoshin. Although the other 2 academies had not recruited a student of the highest level, what they had recruited was. His talent is definitely not inferior to Lin Dao and Xiao Yi. At this point, Elder Fang stopped in his tracks. With a solemn expression, he looked at Xiao Yan and said, this is what the Saint Rank trial participant has to bear. 3 years later, if the Yunluo Academy and Star Sky Academy were to compete, Mu Yuyang's opponent would be. He will definitely be Kang Feng, Lin Dao's opponent. It might be either Wu Tiandu or Sang Hao. But your opponent will definitely be this year's Sang Shoshin. Because the few of you are the highest level trial participants in the academy, and you have to bear the responsibility. Compared to the others, the responsibility is greater. Elder Fang's expression was stern and stern. His words were like thunder ringing in Xiao Yan's ears. Kang Feng, Wu Tiandu, Sang Hao, Sang Shoshin. Xiao Yan silently remembered these names in his heart. For some reason, when he heard the names of these people, he felt a sense of oppression in his heart. Therefore, in these 3 years, the Academy will provide you with the best cultivation resources. The sooner you enter Realm in Valley, the faster your strength will increase. Xiao Yan nodded when he heard this. Yuan Tianmu had told him about the benefits of the Realm in Valley before. It's a little early to tell you all this, but to be honest, this old man, can't wait any longer. Mu Yuyang will be completing his graduation mission in a few months' time. This was also the reason why there was an extra quota. He will be back in the competition 3 years from now. Just like Zhou Buyi from the Southern Sky Academy, who would help students. At that time, those who truly represent our academy. It's still you. On the peak of the mountain, Elder Fang and Xiao Yan slowly walked away, revealing everything they knew. It was clear from this that an old man's love for the academy could be seen. On a mountain peak that was surrounded by clouds and fog in Yunluo Academy, ancient trees seemed to be arranged in a mysterious formation that towered into the clouds. In the open space that was surrounded by ancient trees, a light suddenly flashed. After which, 2 beautiful figures slowly appeared.